Hey guys, A for Alfonso here with another top 10 video. In this one we're looking at the top 10 most disappointing games of the 21st century. These games don't necessarily have to be awful, they just have to have disappointed my expectations and at least some other people's expectations to get onto this list. Without further ado, let's get straight into it with number 10. First on the list is Batman Arkham Knight. Although some may think themselves that Batman Arkham Origins was probably the most disappointing in the series, in my opinion, Arkham Knight stands out as the most disappointing. It added nothing new to the series and kept it going bland, with plenty of glitches when it was released on Steam, especially on the PC version, with still numerous being found on the console versions. A very strange Batmobile game we used to have to blow things up with the Batmobile, and a similar spray painted on sets of different tools and gadgets to use from the previous games. With these things said though, there are some positives to the game. The visual and art style is brilliant, the voice acting is decent, and the story isn't half bad. The bit about Joker dying was pretty awesome. But don't get me started on the DLCs, please don't. Harley Quinn starter pack? No, do not buy it. And number 9 on the list, we have Destiny. Again, like the previous one, Destiny was not and is not a complete failure, but of course it's still disappointing. Despite being mature towards a multiplayer online experience, it still had a high lack of single player content, and even though there were many missions you could complete within single player, the missions were still very difficult and pushed you towards a multiplayer interface, completely disowning the idea of single player being there in the first place. Many missions were also very simplistic and boring at times, and the story was virtually non-existent, other than you being sent to this massive tower so you can destroy aliens because the game says so. There was also a multiplayer competitive mode, but that had as much saturation and variety in it as Call of Duty Ghost does. Again, as I said with previous ones, not a complete failure, as I don't exactly mind take the game, as I've played it myself, but still enough to make it as number 9 on this list. Next. Watch Dogs. Although the sequel was actually quite good and vastly improved from the multiplayer mission structure, stealth elements and weapons, which has now become absolutely brilliant, the original Watch Dogs was not. Essentially, it was a clone of GTA with some basic hacking elements and nothing else, and a slight improvement in the stealth system. To be honest with you, there's not an awful lot you can actually say about Watch Dogs, so I may just continue onwards from here, since it's just essentially a GTA clone with nothing else in it. Oh, and the story's pretty awful, and the character who plays the main watchdog is completely emotionless after his children are killed. So yeah, that's Watch Dogs. Onwards we go then. Assassin's Creed Unity. With bugs and glitches aside, the gameplay is, like many others on this list, virtually the same to the previous games. No variation, a boring story, boring characters, boring setting. I mean, even though the French Revolution could be done brilliantly in this game, and it could have magnified how the struggle of the poor were, and how the assassins in this alternate timeline rose to revenge them, it did none of that. The multiplayer was also fairly unplayable, and I could never connect to the servers, and the bugs and glitches, as mentioned before, just ruined the game. So this game is awful. And if you're thinking why it isn't a number 1, you haven't seen the other entries to come up on this list. Number 6 is next. Call of Duty Ghosts. And along comes another first-person shooter. This has probably got to be the worst Call of Duty to date, with the exception of Infinite Warfare, which was an absolutely appalling. But to be honest with you, I'm just going to go with Ghosts because that's what my gut feeling says. Although the multiplayer wasn't too bad in Ghosts, everything else about it was awful. The story was awful, the infected was completely awful, the aliens was fairly awful, some of the gunplay was awful, there was no new changes, the graphics were similar to the one before, there was nothing branching. Oh, and the opening scene in Ghosts is exactly the same to the one in the ending scene of Modern Warfare 2. Don't believe me? I'll show you right now.
I told you this was a one-way trip. Looks like it still is. They'll be looking for us now. We gotta get out of here!
I know a place. Sim City. This game still hasn't changed in its, 4-year run now? As well as being launched with a bumpy start due to a small lack of content and awful online connections and some horrible bugs, the game was just unfinished. EA clearly weren't expecting a big backlash after a SimCity game hadn't been released since SimCity Gold back in 2004. But this game did nothing of which the other games did. With small pre-built worlds, little to no content in some cases, very limited building designs, awful online features and not necessarily features but connection, and a limited amount of servers, SimCity does enough to get into number 5 on this list. Next up, number 4. Homefront: The Revolution. And another first-person shooter. This game really is just the dog's nuts. Nothing else needs to be said on it. Next. Pokemon Go. If you're under 12, have fun. If you're over 25, what are you doing with your life? Pokemon Go was designed for children, not adults. And although it seems fun on paper, and in cases it is, the gameplay can seem a bit daunting. The main world map that guides you around is a bit boring and bland. Character design creation is limited, and I know it's meant to be a basic mobile game, but still it could have done better. And anyway, certain heritage sites are used to play Pokemon Go without people's permission, such as famous museums, etc., which isn't the best of idea. Oh, and the fighting system is awful and should have been removed completely. That's Pokemon Go for you, in a nutshell, and how it's disappointing. On to number 2. Resident Evil 5. Resident Evil 4 risked a lot to get to its greatness. It risked the main gameplay mechanics, the story, the horror elements, but in the end it ended up brilliant. Resident Evil 5 did none of that. And to be honest with you, the 6th one did none of that either, but I personally find this one worse than number 6. Resi 5 focuses too much on action and not enough on horror, as seen in the game, and focuses more on shooting down the enemy rather than scares. Resident Evil 5 is bad, but not enough to get to one of the most disappointing games of this year, of the 21st century. Duke Nukem Forever. The graphics are dated. The mechanics of the game are simple. The humour is dated and offensive. The shooting is boring. The story is ridiculous. The references are awful. The time to develop the game was long. The purpose of the game is nothing. Why I'm still talking about this game, I don't know, and I don't think I'll ever know. But this game, it was a disappointment. If any of you have ever played Duke Nukem 3D, you will know this game is not just bad, but a disappointment and a shun to the whole series, which is only climax of a couple of games anyway. So there you go. The 10 most disappointing games of the 21st century. I'm A for Alfonso, and I bid you farewell.